Like a videotaping?
Yeah, I'm just videotaping whenever I do presentations, that I can share them with other GSMs if they want to just copy me or whatever.
So we shouldn't make fun of you or anything?
Well, you can. Feel free to make fun of me, cuss, do whatever you want.
Okay.
It isn't like it's going out to the entire organization or anything. Plus, I might watch it and see if I should be doing something better. Having said that, and if you could move it over a little bit, because I'm going to be looking at
My good
that
self.
video. Sorry.
I'm ready for my
It's a
call
wide
from
angle
Mr.
one.
DeVille. Come on.
Yeah. So glad I could distract everybody with the GoPro. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Where's the hairstylist? Makeup.
We try to figure out a few things that were kind of like mountains we wanted to climb. And we want to talk about, here's where the organization's going. Here's where we're at today, right? What are the few things that we as salespeople could focus on that would help us get from point A to point B, right? And where are we going to check in along the way? And last but not least, also there might be a little bit of rewarding to hitting some of these goals, right? So pretty fun stuff. And what my plan is to go over this today relatively briefly, but then to send out an email and follow up that actually lines everything out, right? And if you want to print it off, you can print it off. You want to just keep it or whatever, something you can look at on a periodic basis. So having said that, let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, now it comes up, the whole thing. There we go. So this is obviously, everybody knows what this is, right? It's our 4 critical priorities, and obviously we want to align with those. So we're going to start at the top, consumer inspired, and I've been told that that's there purposely, because that's going to be a A1 focus this year for our entire organization. And then we're going to kind of go around clockwise and end saving the best for last with engaged culture. All right? Let's get going. So we're going to start out with consumer inspired, obviously. And we're going to talk about 2 different things that we want to do under consumer inspired to maybe help ourselves out. The first one, CPRE. Who knows what CPRE stands for? Hopefully everybody. Anybody? Deb?
Clear, personal, responsive, and easy.
Excellent, excellent. And I guess a goal, and I'm not going to really track this one, okay, so we're not going to be reporting on it or anything like that, but a goal I would like to make for each of you personally, I guess, is that we could see at least an increase on 2 different categories for this year. Now, how are we going to do that? What are some thoughts on how we could increase our CPRE scores this year? Salesman.
Tell people it's easy.
Right.
Tell
I
people
love
it's going to
it.
be easy. Use the word easy as many times as you can.
Exactly. And I think that gets to an underlying principle of sharing best practices.
Right.
Right, because we did one of the meetings where we talked about easy, and there were some people that shared the best practices, and I can't remember who all it was that, maybe it was Lori that had a real high one, and who else, Livy? Or no, I apologize, I can't remember who off the top of my head. Katie did.
Yeah.
Katie and Lori maybe.
Yeah.
And both of them kind of, when they drilled it down, they were like, we just tell people it's easy.
Yeah.
It's not brain surgery, we just tell people it's easy.
Right.
And remember, the goal here isn't to improve the score, because who cares, right? The goal here is related to the fact that when you improve this score, people are more likely to buy, right? And we've actually shown this. Not only did an outside consulting organization tell us this, but since then we've collected enough data to actually show it works. In other words, if people walk out of your office feeling like, this is going to be an easy process, they are more likely to buy a home from you, period. The correlation's actually shown out in our own statistics with over 1,500 of these surveys filled out. People that are rated easy higher are actually more likely to purchase a home from us than people that rate it lowly, right? And I think that makes sense. If you're at Best Buy and it's easy, maybe you're more likely to buy than if you don't understand what the hell's going on, probably, right? Okay, so that's a good one. Sharing best practices. What else could we be doing to help out on these things? Anything else? Anybody thought of? Lori?
Let people know specifically when you're going to follow up with them.
Ah, exactly. Another best practice. And that comes under the, which one do you think that one is?
Responses.
Yep, thank you very much. And so, without further ado, I'll go over here and just put down a couple things I thought of. And this is probably a little bit on me, but also on you, right? I'm thinking on a quarterly basis, we're definitely pulling the scores and creating an action plan. And I think that'll help us get there, right?
What you focus on, you'll achieve.
Yep. You focus on something that changes, ideally for the better, right? And I'll be there to help share best practices, right? And at these meetings, we can share best practices. You can always reach out to your counterparts. I don't think there's anybody in this room that if you sent them an email and said, hey, how are you doing this, that they wouldn't respond very quickly and be very happy to tell you how to do it. And last but not least, just focus on providing a world-class experience every time. That's the key to this, every single time. Now, that's difficult some of the times, especially when you're busy, you have more than one customer in the office, you've had a tough day or whatever, but just, put your best foot forward and we should do really good on these things. Just on more homes.
kind of like Disney, right? It's like John
Hey, John.
spoke about it earlier. World class.
On the whole, easy, which I
Yeah.
totally believe in, I actually put together a little piece of paper that I give to people.
Oh.
And it says, buying your new home from Pulte, and doesn't have a disclaimer, I should say that, wouldn't it? Buying your new home from Pulte is easy. And it's all in red and it's in bold. It says, select your home plan, select your home site location, price your options with your sales associate, complete your contract with your earnest money, apply online for your loan within 3 days, set up your design appointment, get approved for your loan, relax, and let us build your future memories.
Yeah, just made
It's
it a
so-
bullet point. Boom, boom,
and
boom,
I mean,
boom, done.
whether it's this words or not, it's something that I have sitting there, and I kind of start talking with people about that right away.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And
Actually, show me the
so
process.
maybe it's something we could all have.
Absolutely.
So I can
absolutely.
send this to you, and you can put it through the right.
No, please do. Send it
You
over
know,
to me, and I'll
category
run it through
people,
marketing.
people.
Make sure that we have make
Legal
sure marketing
and-
legal are okay with this.
But yeah,
Hopefully they will.
and that way it sets the tone right away. Like, oh, this is a breeze.
Yeah.
Right.
Not a big deal.
When you go
It's a
to a
great
car
idea.
dealer, I hate to compare us to cars,
Mhm.
but when you go to a car dealership, they give you a brochure. It's,
Yeah.
you know, and it matches what's in line with their website, everything.
Mhm.
Again, these are the packages that we have for options, things like that. Same concept, right?
Same thing.
Right on.
Yeah. And it's such a high anxiety purchase that more steps, or just laying it out with the steps,
Yeah.
makes it easy.
Yeah.
Good.
And then kind of getting to the responsive on the CPRE, right? This is kind of laced in towards that. Is that I'd like to see us enter 5% on all the reports, and especially those leads in 24 hours. I think we probably beat the dead horse on this one a little bit earlier with the CRM mobile app. But does anybody else have any other best practices or anything they'd want to share around doing a little better on our CRM reports? Anybody? Any thoughts? I mean, I think John kind of helped us out earlier when talking about it, but let's go over and take a look at kind of some of my ideas. Always just continue to focus on prospect follow-up, pretty easy. Using the mobile app, which we just went over today. And here's a big one for these leads. Partner with other sales consultants for when your office is closed, okay? So if there's 2 people at your office and you're both going to be gone for a day, talk to another sales consultant. If you have 2 days off every week and you're at a 1-person office, maybe find another 1-person office or someone you know and trust on the team who could follow up with those leads on your days off, right? I mean, this is kind of common sense, I would think. Follow up with people in the same timely manner that you would want to be followed up with, and that's what I talked about earlier. Upon some thought, it kind of gave me a little chagrin to think, I don't know if I'd buy a home from us if someone didn't follow up with me quickly, right? Okay, excellent, excellent. So that's kind of our consumer inspired, and there's some more to consumer inspired that we'll see under capital productivity too. Okay, so capital productivity, fun stuff, right? We're going to look at something here that's kind of interesting. Inventory turns. Inventory turns. Do you guys know how many people could raise their hand and say, I know what an inventory turn is? Like, I know what that's about. Besides Maria. It's a big deal to Maria, right? Basically what inventory turns is, it's basically, and Maria, you might need to help me out here a little bit, but it's basically how many times and how quickly we get our money back. So if we spend money on something, let's say it's an asset like land. Let's say we spend $12 million on land. How often do we get that money back on a yearly basis? Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Pretty dumbed down version, I guess I would say, about that. So as it might, think about capital productivity, meaning we have capital. How do we make it productive? How do we make our money back on it? This is a really important figure. Because if we spend millions and millions of dollars to make a small amount of money, do we really help ourselves out? And I was talking to somebody about this just the other day, and the kind of idea is this: if I spend $1 million this year and made $1 million, that's pretty good, right? And I got that back in a year, so I made 100% return. I had a 1.0, I guess technically. I got it back all in 1 year, right?
Would that equate
Is
to
that
a
what that
1.0 there?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
equate to 1.0. A 1.1 would mean that I spent it all and then got it back 1.1 times. So maybe I got $1.1 million.
In 1 year?
In 1 year.
Wow.
Is that correct? Right, okay.
Wow.
Okay,
Over a
right.
12-month period.
Over a 12-month period.
Right.
I should say,
So
it's
it's
not a
not-
calendar, right?
right.
So we spend the money today, it's going
Mhm.
to track that out from 12 months from today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please correct me on the little...
Yeah. Because you have to remember, like, we have supply out there. Technically, our division looks like we have 5 years of supply. Well, nobody, I mean, it's like 5 years of supply. Where? Well, we got a lot of lots out at Bristol Bay, don't we, Michael?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So like those type of communities we also have that we aren't actively selling in, but are on the books. But this is also too, like right now, where we landed in 2014 was 1.6. So people might say, holy cow, we're going the reverse. We're not getting better, we're getting worse. Well, guess what? We're also putting a lot of money into our business this year. We have all these grand openings.
1.6 is worse than 1.6?
No, 1.6 was great. And
Yeah, it was good.
going into 2015,
We have a
looked
goal
worse.
of lower. I
Right.
guess.
We have a goal that's lower than what we performed at last year. is what I'm
Right.
saying.
But as business people in this room, we understand that it's because we're investing. We're writing out the checks left and right now with all the new properties coming on board.
So is this mostly for land? Is this mostly a land?
There's house and land. Great question.
Yeah.
So land, can we control? Well, if we sell out of communities and make really good margins and that we want to reinvest in that area, absolutely, that's
But
great
it's
for us.
probably not a 1-year return on land, right? It's probably taking a little longer
Right.
than that.
If you were to look at an individual piece of land, but we look at it as a division.
Right.
So this year so getting back to my
Oh,
analogy,
okay,
okay,
so it's
so
not
we,
a
we,
direct
we invested $1 million,
No.
right?
Oh my God.
And we made $1 million in a single year, right? That's a 1.0 on investment. That looks pretty good. What if next year we make $2 million? That's more revenue. That's hypothetically better. But what if we invested $12 million next year, but we only made $2 million? Did we really do that good? And most financial investors would tell you no. If you invested $1 million, you got $1 million back. And at 1.0, that was great. But if you invested $12 million and then made $2 million, even though your net revenue, right, went up and doubled, you actually would be on this at whatever that comes out to, 0.75 or whatever, right? Or excuse me, 0.2 or 0.18 or whatever it is, right? Does that make sense to everybody? I know this is kind of complicated. It's hard for me to even think about oftentimes. But basically what it's about is if I'm outlaying money, how quickly I'm getting that money back. Because the more quickly I get it back, the more quickly I can reinvest it and make it more productive for me, right? Last year, like Maria said, we got 1.6. So all the money that we had invested in this company or as the division of last year, we got all that money back. Basically, if you looked at over a calendar year, that's the case of that metric right there, it was 1.6. That's awesome. It was a really good year. Now
And
this year,
it's a good metric to be able to compare divisions against each other. That's what this really, I mean, when you start looking at all these different metrics and what's in it for us, what have you, it's a great metric. And again, corporate sees us as Chicago,
Let's invest
specifically,
more.
yeah, we're investing. We're growing this year. 2015 and 16, this number won't be crazy just because we're reinvesting and we're growing. We're in that growing stage.
and so as we're growing, we might see this number a little lower because we might be buying $50 million pieces of land and doing
Right.
things like that, right? But then what will happen is as we reinvest and we kind of build up our book, so as to speak, we'll start in 2 or 3 years from now seeing this number going way up because we'll probably slow down on the investing and just get the returns coming in, okay? So I just wanted to give a slight overview on that. And then upon that overview, we'll see how well everybody understands. What's some things that we can do on the sales floor? Both like this.
Make sure homes close on time.
Yes.
Huge
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody want to take a crack at if you had a home sitting there and let's say the home's a $500,000 home and the customer calls and says, I got to close a month later than I'm supposed to. I got to close a month later. People died. The world, is I don't know, whatever. Some crazy thing. The demons just opened up in the pit of, in the home, my current home, and consumed my soul. I need to wait an extra 30 days.
On a
Right.
$500,000 home, how much would it cost us? Probably $3,000.
Okay, so there's different numbers depending on who I talk to. Okay, so I'm going to throw that one out there right there.
Just go with Kurt.
Do you want me to
Yeah,
go with Kurt's?
go with
Okay, I'll go
Kurt.
with Kurt Van Heffy's number right there.
Yeah.
You're looking at a 22.5% annualized cost to us. Okay, so $500,000 times 22.5%. Anybody got a calculator real quick? No? I'll do it. Okay, so
$12,000, $15,000
per month.
per month. How could that be?
Okay, watch this. So what we do is we take a $500,000 home, right? And we would multiply that by a percentage average like credit cards use here,
$12,000,
right?
but it's not
Times
really.
0.225. That's $112,000 per year that home
Per
costs us
year,
sit,
right.
right? Divided by 12. $9,375 that home costs us for that extra month. So when your customer calls and says, I got to push back my closing by 30 days, you should say, great. So if you can give me an extra $20,000, we'll make that happen. Okay? this is one of those things that I think a lot of salespeople don't really understand when they're asking or talking to that customer, and maybe not setting the best expectation, is they don't understand that that just cost our company $10,000 because that customer wanted to move their closing back 30 days. Right. Go ahead, Beatrice.
What about when you flip that around and you speak about an inventory home, and we have an offer, and it's a strong offer, but it doesn't fall necessarily in the numbers that the company wants.
Mhm.
We're willing to take a hit and pay $10,000 a month, 2, 3, 4 months, when you could have offloaded the home?
Yep, that's a great question. And so, like everything in this world, right, we have balancing priorities. One of them is a margin optimization. Okay, that's the next thing we're going to talk about. Okay, another one's a capital productivity, right? Now, if I could look into the future, like if you gave me a crystal ball, right, and you said, John, look into your crystal ball, you can see that this home will not sell for 4 more months. Take this low margin deal. I'd say, yes, my crystal ball told me that. I will take the low margin deal. But as a company, as an operator, you have to think to yourself, let's say that inventory home's been sitting for a month, and you come in with some really low margin. We're not going to make the assumption it's going to set for another 4 months. We're going to say, oh, well, it's been sitting there for a month, and we got this offer. We can hold out for a better one. Maybe it's a time of year thing. Maybe it's traffic to the community thing. There's a lot of these ways that these decisions are being made. Maybe we need signups. Maybe we don't. Maybe we can impair the margin a little bit right now because we have some other high margin homes selling in the community. Maybe we can take that low margin home. Right? There's a lot of different things acting here, a lot of different
Deborah,
balances.
right, and a specific example, to even go even deeper, Deborah had the Savoy model, right? We could have offloaded it a lot faster. However, one model at her community had, I mean, it was like 200 grand of margin. I mean, it's just like you have to think of that, and so we have to think for, it's an orchestra. We are all an orchestra out here, you know? So we were holding out for her to get this high, $200,000 margin that we could, that's, I mean, think of your own community, each home, how much, yeah. So we're like, all right, well, we could carry this home for an extra month. We got it on the market right away in July. It's closing in February, hopefully. But I mean, those are the things that we're constantly balancing. This man right here and myself has to balance, because you guys are an orchestra out there. The flute's okay, we need the strings over here. I mean, it's constantly juggling to see, and so sometimes we don't always have the same, we can't just always say, spec, unload, go. There's certain communities that it's like, you know what, we need the 200 grand of margin.
And this might get to the point I've been asked before, like, why don't you just tell us what margin we're trying to go after and just let us make decisions at the community level? Yeah, that won't work. Like she said, it's an orchestra, and we're balancing numerous different things at any point given in time. I know it sounds a little crazy, but that's kind of what that's what my role is. I guess if you didn't need somebody doing that, they could just fire me, and you guys could all just make your own decisions, right? But unfortunately, we need to be thinking about what the division's doing, what the priorities are, what's already sold, what do we need.
The
There's just a
priority
lot
and
of
the
things.
priorities, as much as I would love to say it's going to be this throughout the entire year, quarterly it changes. We just re-rolled a new forecast. So it's constant. I mean, so he's truly the conductor. He has to be the one that's pulling the levers behind the curtain.
But it does lend itself.
I picked John.
I mean, this high carrying cost does lend itself to a low risk strategy of no specs, right?
Right, so when you wonder why we don't have specs,
Right.
this is the reason why, carrying cost, right? And that's why we've said, if you can make a case and then prove your case, being the optimal word here, and then prove it out, that you can sell specs and close them as soon as they're finished, like you sell them while they're in production, and you can still make a good margin on them, right? We'll build specs. Unfortunately, for the most part, that has not been proven out here. We used a lot of the numbers from the Glen, where we had to build specs out there and then sold them really quickly and sold them high margins to make some really good arguments. I think Maria did a great job of this strategically this year to get some specs going. Like, I don't know if you've seen, we kind of went into a little bit of flurry of spec building, right? The key is we've got to get those things moved, and we've got to get them moved quick, right? Because every month that spec sets there, the margin erodes. You know what I mean? So, does that make sense? What else could we do on capital productivity? Any other ideas?
Some more options, right?
Some more options. And why would that help capital productivity?
Options have a higher profit margin.
And so when we close on that home, we get more money back.
Per dollar.
Per lot, getting us our money back more quickly. Excellent, excellent.
More communication so we don't make errors, so that there's not one, time loss, two, mistakes, reordered materials, things that don't fit.
I think it's a great
Customer
point.
concern, delayed closing.
So when people ask their construction manager or myself, hey, we have this late change order, this customer really wants to pull out this hardwood and put this other hardwood in, and we know that a certain percentage of the time there, that for whatever reason, we can make excuses all day, does not get communicated properly, it does get communicated properly, and the vendor just drops the ball. I don't know what happens, but that hardwood doesn't happen, and then when they come to their pre-closing orientation, 5 days before they're supposed to close or 2 days before they're supposed to close, and they find there's the wrong hardwood floor in their house, guess what we're doing? We're bumping something back. Whoopsie on the late change order, right? Or when people ask me about NSOs, well, let's do NSOs. And we know that like 40% of those go sideways, right? We know that that's going to hit us here, right?
Home complete probably hits on each one of the four
Yep.
critical priorities.
We're going to see that, but the consumer inspired
Yeah.
is home complete, right?
Right.
That's what we've identified as the biggest thing. If consumers close on a home that's incomplete, we can screw up in any number of different ways, and they're probably going to feel pretty good about us. On the other side of the coin, we could do everything right. You could deliver world-class experience on the sales floor. We could have the best customer service and warranty. We could do everything 100% right. And if they move into a home that is not 100% complete, that's a bad customer experience every time. You don't drive off a car lot with like one wheel missing. You know what I mean? Well, that would be tough.
Or the steering wheel.
Or the dashboard just missing. Let's say one seat in your car's missing. You're like, I'll just go ahead and take it. And we'll bring it in on my day off and have them replace the other seat in it. But we ask our consumers to do that all the time, right? As a miss, and it's a big one, right? That causes us a lot of problems. And that's why I said getting to kind of consumer inspired with the capital productivity. And there's one other thing that I'm not sure anybody's thinking about right now, but I'm just going to toss out this hint. We're trying to get money back as quickly as possible. Where's a way that we can, on the sales floor, influence how quickly we get money?
Earnest money.
Ah, yes. So when you're wondering why we're trying to push earnest money, it's for two reasons, right? Number one, it's so people don't cancel. Because when people cancel, we get stuck with inventory, oops, and margins degrade. I mean, everything goes sideways. But number two, ultimately, it actually affects this. The faster we can get that earnest money, the more return and quickly we get our inventory.
But that's a balance too.
That's
Get
right.
that too high and.
Right, no, and that's why we always say we want to place a high bar, but then we'll always challenge that. If you have that guy that's VA and is 100% financing, only has $5,000, call me. I don't think I've turned away a deal yet, have I, over earnest money? Has anybody heard me go like, nope, don't take that deal because of earnest money? But what makes it easy for me is that most of you guys are doing a damn good job of collecting more earnest money than you need to. Right? You get that person that's like, oh, I'm paying cash, I sold my home yesterday, and you go, well, hey.
I'm going to need 50% for you.
No, I'm going to need a lot more up front. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's going to offset that time with the VA guy, right? So continue doing a good job of that and get as much as you can.
Let's ask for it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
The worst
doesn't
thing they
hurt.
could say is, oh, I don't have it all. Well, how much do you have?
Right. How much were you planning on putting down on the home? 40%? Oh, well, for earnest money, we like to collect at least half of what people are putting down on their home. So that's going to be 20%, sir. I mean, they have the money, usually, right? So, just some things to try, right? So let's take a look at some things that I kind of lined out on this. A couple things. No moving closings back. I think we already hit that one. No NSOs, right? We talked about that. No late changes. That's why we're banging our drum on those things. It isn't just because we like to make people's lives harder. Close specs as quickly as possible, kind of obvious. Grand open communities as quickly as possible. So we didn't talk about that. But sometimes people are asking me, like, what's the urgency to get this community open? Why don't we just wait a little longer? We'll wait till spring and we'll get a little more urgency built up. Why do we have to do that? The more quickly we can get opened and we can start delivering and selling homes, the more quickly we get our money back, right? And here's one that was a little bit further out, but you have to understand is use PMC to ensure the on-time closings. We're finding out that when people use an outside lender, it's over 50% this year that did not close on time with an outside lender, okay? I spent a lot of time with Mary talking about this because this PMC thing affects kind of a lot of stuff at this company, capital productivity being one of them. And one of our thoughts that we came to, she said, anytime that I'm able, Mary, is able to talk to a customer, especially up front, who tells you, I'm using OSL, there's no way in hell I'm going to talk to you. I don't want PMC. No. Okay, sir, we really want you to talk to him. If you can get them to talk to Mary, there is a damn good chance that she's going to land the deal. Because oftentimes, no matter how much people love their current lender and stuff, when you show them that they're getting ready to lose thousands of dollars by using that lender, their best friend, good buddy, father-in-law, whoever, when you start talking thousands of dollars and you start talking about the inconvenience and you start putting these things out there, a lot of people change their mind pretty quick. So my goal, I mean, we want, you know, this capture to be high, we want sign up to be high, but I've been thinking about what's the underlying process that gets us there. One of the big things is if we can have 100% communication with OSL clients up front, we'll hit our numbers this year, if this happens. Because I talked to Mary and she said, you know what, probably 80% of the OSL deals that actually close OSL, start OSL and close OSL, I don't talk to them. I don't get to communicate. I talked to some people in Michigan who have some of the greatest Pulte mortgage closing rates in the country. And they explained that they're only giving $1,500 away across the boards at every community. They don't give big incentives like we do. They have $1,500. Their TCGs are alike. I said, well, are different TCGs doing things? Like, are your more blue-collar guys that they use in PMC? Nope. It's pretty much flat across the boards. We're getting high capture everywhere. And the biggest thing from talking to them about what their practices are was simply that every single OSL deal, and how hard you push this, I don't know, but they said pretty much 100% of them talk to a PMC rep. And if that doesn't work, they actually talk to the regional director of PMC. And they just capture deals like crazy. They push it hard, okay? So that's why I've got to this 100% communications up front thing. All right, so let's move to operating margin. Also another fun topic, right? So that's capital productivity. Oh, and I apologize. I kind of forgot to talk about this. Here's our stretch goal on this, all right? 1.1 is kind of where we're setting out as division. Last year we did 1.6. Our stretch goal is 1.25. We'll come back to that in a minute. Okay. Margin. Thought about putting a Brady Bunch picture on here. Margin, margin, margin. Signups. Obviously, they're going to affect our margin quite a bit. We have a goal of 438 signups in the Chicagoland division for this year. And we want to put a stretch goal out there of 450. We didn't put a huge stretch goal out there because we know that we typically try to optimize margin once we hit our goals, right? So we always are going after our goal, and pace is the most important thing. As soon as we're hitting our goals, let's raise prices and optimize margin, right? That's how we kind of work. So we put a stretch goal of 450 out there. You know, this one's pretty obvious, I think. This is what we do for a living, right? I don't think I need to belabor how we get more signups, right? We all get that. So let's move on.
How many did we do this year?
Right about the same.
Okay.
We're pretty right about the same. As with St. Louis and Illinois, I don't have it in front of me. I apologize. This past year, well, we're going to talk about closing. We closed to combine 625, and we're looking to close 615. That's the plan number that we're putting out there. We continue year after year to beat our plan and hit a forecast.
By 10 to 15.
So every quarter as we go. And I know sometimes that in the beginning in January, everyone's like, oh man, we don't have a lot of sign-ups, what's going on? This is very typical in Chicago. St. Louis gets a head start a little bit. We start seeing the emails, it's like, all right, we're ready, let's go, right? But this is very typical in our marketplace after the holidays with the weather that we get, and then it'll start to heat up, literally, with sign-ups.
And this year we have a 448. Our goals have come down just a little bit for this year, and it's mainly because some of the communities that are closing out versus the communities that are coming on and things like that, we're going to be backing down just a little bit on the signups and closings, but it's
Pretty
not
flat, but
it's
yeah.
pretty flat.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, 2016 is where you're going to see us lighten it up. You're going to see some major jumps. 2016, 2017, you're going to see us rapidly getting more signups and more closings. Okay. But anyhow, so this is kind of a goal and a stretch goal. Anybody want to throw out how we can help get more closings as a salesperson? Because some of the times we think, okay, we're in charge of the signups, but do we really help on the closings? I mean, what do we really do to help closings happen? How are we going to help get to this goal?
Follow through, make sure that, one, all their earnest money is in. If they're right before closing, don't have them turn in an earnest money check. Or make sure you have all the financials so that it happens.
Just heard about it earlier. Yep.
Well, I have more, but.
That's all right. Just because we're a little time crunched here, I'm going to start cranking through these things. Whoops, I forgot to put the goal in there. That's all right. Collect more earnest money. What we're finding is there is a direct correlation. The more earnest money somebody puts down, the more likely they are to close. Big aha moment for you on that one. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Secondly, use PMC. Once again, 100% communication with OSL deals. That's kind of what I'm trying to make as an internal goal for this year. Let's have 100% of our OSL deals at least talking to Mary, minimum. And then lastly but not least, communicate on backlog risk. Some of the times there's some miscommunications. You know, a salesperson knows something, closing department doesn't know, closing department knows something sales doesn't know. I don't know anything, whatever. Let's try to be really on top of the communication and communicate often on what's going on.
There were a couple deals at the end of the year, right, that you guys knew more of the detail that was ever being shared with leadership, any type of leadership, sales, management, or construction management. And it was incredible where just giving us the ideas and understanding what was going on out there. I mean, we had
Really
a VP
helps
of construction down at a community on a Sunday, and that's where he should have been, because we had serious issues at a community. So we don't want to, cry wolf. At the same time, we need them to get involved. So the sooner you guys can get us involved, and it's impeccable. We have a very large team, 2 sales leaders, and we know more than I would say a lot of other departments know. And it's because of you guys. So keep that open dialogue, because it is great. We're helping, and ideally, we're doing what we want to do for the customer, right? We need them to close. They want to close. Let's do this together. So thank you for being open about that and that communication.
Excellent. So that's how we're going to get to our closing and sign-up notes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, last but definitely not least, sorry, margin. Goal of 22.4% this year, so relatively flat with where we finished the year out, right? With a stretch goal of 23.3. Any thoughts on how we would do that? How are we going to increase margin? Now, this is one thing I think that salespeople have a lot of control over, right, from a margin perspective. What are we going to do on the sales floor to help increase our
Control
margin?
your incentive. You don't have to give everything away.
Every client.
Hold on to it. Yeah.
Yep.
Hold
Absolutely.
tight. Just put maybe a little out there if the customer needs it. Feel it. We'll get the sale, but don't give away the ship. And options. If they're able, the more options, the sell the better.
It was always hard for me. I wasn't really a big fan of selling options,
Mhm.
but to be honest, it's a huge place where we can really increase these margins, right? Other thoughts on how we get there? Lot
Lot
premiums,
premiums.
exactly. I just got an email from a team, I'll just say it was Shorewood, who said, we have 3 lots and we're pretty sure we can make $1,000 to $2,000 more off of. They're sitting on our books right now. Let's go ahead and raise those up and get a little extra on them, right?
Yep.
Yeah, great job, guys. We appreciate that.
Even too with our CFO, some of our flooring outlet company that we're trying to pair with, this is a big reason. Not only to give you guys more time, ideally I would love to see every community eventually use a flooring contractor so that you guys are spending more time selling the homes and less time optioning them out. But another great way of increasing our margin. They'll spend more. If it's not you guys in front of them and showing them stuff, they will spend more when they go with Lisa as CFO.
That's
They
all she
will.
does. That's what she does for a living, man. I mean,
When you see all the
Come on.
samples and all the glitz, you can't tell me you're not going to say,
Pretty
"Oh yeah,
impressive.
okay, yeah, I want to go to the backsplash." Of course, I want that.
right. And here's another one on the option side. If you see an option that everybody's taking, you know what I mean? And you say, hey, you know what? I think we can get more for this. We're not, maybe we're not charging as much as we could. I know I sold $300 rocker switch packages like they were going crazy, and I said, hey, I think we can get more for these rocker switches because everybody's buying them. It just seems like such a good value for the whole home to be changed over, right? If you see an option like that, report it up, and we'll test. We'll test it. If we raise it too much, we'll bring it back down. We'll do what we gotta do. Increase premiums. Once again, here we are. PMC capture.
Yeah.
All right. They contributed over $1 million to our bottom line last year. That's with an 85% capture rate. Higher capture rate. If we were at 100%, we could have been at 1.2 million or something like that. Higher capture rates equal more margin, right?
John,
Go ahead.
out of curiosity, with the PMC incentive, you know how in the HPW, if we apply it under mortgage incentive versus cash incentive, it's a benefit to us to put it under cash incentive? When you guys are figuring out the margin, how do you decipher, do they always get applied to cash incentive?
Yeah, because we always think worst case scenario when we're
Oh, you
calculating
mean when we're
the
calculating
HPW.
HPW? Yes. We assume that's going to be towards the closing cost when we're calculating out an HPW percentage. But honestly, you have the control of that, and I think Beatrice makes a good point. If any of you've noticed, if you give them $5,000 in closing costs, that impacts the margin more than giving them $5,000 towards their options. Anybody want to take a guess at why that is?
It impacts them negatively more.
Anybody want to take a crack at what
We
that is?
make money on the
Doesn't cost
options.
us
5,000
$5,000.
cash at closing is 5,000 cash.
It's a
5,000
dollar to
in-
dollar.
Yeah, 5,000 in options is 50% markup.
Right.
100%.
Oh, we're
Or,
getting
well,
pushback from
100% markup,
EMC
50% margin.
But it's cash on hand too.
Yeah.
I mean, right, to your point of saying, oh, you might have customers that might not have it.
Yeah.
But we still want to do the right thing for the customer. We want to help the customer get to the finish line and stuff like that. But that's the point that Beatrice makes. It impacts it a little bit differently.
That's
right. Okay. Last but not least, kind of a little bit of what John talked about: reducing sales losses and replacements. We've gotten hit with a lot of losses and replacements this year, mainly because of the rollout, because our purchasing program hasn't been 100% all the time. There's some confusion. The big thing is just check your expects on this one. You know, if you have an option and you remember, oh, well, the last community I was at, this option meant this. That is not necessarily the case at the new community you're at. Check it out. Ask me the question. Ask your partner the question. If we have to, we'll put it on the purchasing tracker, right? And we'll get it straightened out, because we need to clean this up. Secondly, when you're talking to your construction managers and they say, hey, you know, this customer is upset about whatever. Hey, we were thinking maybe we, you know, give them a credit of $2,000. Hold your roll right there. Okay, hold on a second. So who's going to be paying the $2,000? Because what's happening some of the times is salespeople are like, sure, if you guys, yeah, give them $2,000. That's great. Whatever. Next thing you know, $2,000 appears on sales losses and replacements. When I go track this down, they go, hey, the salesperson told me to do it. Right? And then I find out the conversation was a little different than that. But that's just something to be aware of. And one of the things that we're trying to do is put construction on the 100% expectation that everything that hits sales losses and replacements goes through me. So there's never one of these little gotchas down the road. And we have caught construction people with their hand in the cookie jar. No offense to them, but like, oh, sales loss and replace. Oh, whoops. You know, caught ya. Because of this, right?
Wait a second. If they're spending our, how does that work? You're spending our money? No.
Yeah. So anyhow, just something to stay on top of, something to think about back of your mind.
Yeah.
But the less mistakes that we can make, the better expectation setting we can have with our customers too, the better off we do on this. And I apologize, I'm going over, but I'm almost done, I swear. Engage culture, so this is one of my favorite things, as you guys all know, right? So how are we going to improve our engagement this year? We had some really big improvement last year, and our engagement numbers are really high. We're in like the 77th percentile. So what are some things we're going to do, right? And I'll just click over to this. We took the feedback that you guys gave, and I think I put the plan out to you all and kind of showed you these are the things that we've identified that we're going to change this year. This is the things that we're working on, okay? And so kind of in those three areas right there. Q2, have the tools. I'm going to talk about some of the things we've already accomplished as we're accomplishing them, right? We've already got the TCG 5 and TCG 10 merchandise guys finished. Everybody like that? I mean, that was a big ask. It was a big undertaking. There was a lot of work that was put into that, obviously. We finally got that rolled out. We have a purchasing tracker. And does everybody understand the process now? Because I don't know if my email was completely clear. If you have an emergency, you call and text. Okay? Does everybody understand that? That's an emergency. If it's not an emergency, in other words, it can wait till my Wednesday. It's now Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning. If it can wait till my Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning meeting with Andrew, put it on the purchasing tracker. Don't email. Don't worry about anything. Just stick it right on there, and I'll deal with them when I see him.
And where is that
on Wednesday.
purchasing tracker? Where is it in this?
It's on the share drive under number 2 cells.
Number 2 sales.
Yep. So almost everything that you guys ever do, if it's not specific to your community, is going to be under like number 2 cells. Right? I mean, there's some things that at a grand opening you might be going into the purchasing tracker to look up cabinet, things or something like that.
So the first time purchasing sees it, it'll be on this tracker.
Yes. Predominantly everything, 95% of the first time purchasing sees it, it'll be on that tracker.
So
Okay?
we don't email them anymore.
Nope. Unless it's an emergency, then feel free to email, text, call, like go nuts. But mainly the call and the text. That's Andrew. He told me to have everybody call his cell phone number. If you don't have his cell phone number, it's really easy. You just put his name in your email and click on his name, and it shows you his cell phone number, right? So you can see everybody's cell phone number for the most part. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. So hopefully that's going to get our purchasing stuff cleaned up a little better. And so I have a weekly meeting with them they're like 2 hours. I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to be more in the 3 to 4 hour range for the time being, okay? And I'm just going to sit there and we're just going to grind it out. And what you guys can do is on Wednesday afternoon or later, go on and check the purchasing tracker and see where we're at. Because some of the times when I'm meeting with them, they can't fix the stuff on the spot. They have to give it to Adele, who's got to do something. They got to send something to NPS. They got to go out to bid. So not everything's going to be taken care of every Wednesday, but they will get the process started. And then when I come back the following week, if it is not green, I will go over it again. Okay, so you said you did this last week. Where are we at? that make sense?
And so I know you guys are hesitant because we've tried multiple processes, right? But I would tell you two things. One, the merchandising guide for 5 and 6 is also being worked on. It's part of it. It's out there, so just so you know for that. Purchasing trackers. Not only do you guys see it, and Hudson sees it, and purchasing sees it, but I'm reviewing it, as well as Mike Halsler I'm having review it, as well as Kurt Van Hefty has reviewed it, along with purchasing, to say our front line is challenged. They feel handcuffed with these things. What are the things? What are the things when I get stopped in the hall, right? What are those things, Maria? Oh, let me do better. I'll give you access directly to the link.
It's right here on the Sure Drive. Boom.
And there was a conversation last week about what are we doing to get the front line the tools to do their job. So it is a high priority that so if it's on the tracker today, get it on the tracker because he's looking at it and everybody's looking at it. And every Wednesday he's sitting down with purchasing, and every Friday your ops leadership is also looking at it and talking about it to see what is coming off the line. Because this is insanity. If we're not fixing it, this is insanity. So let's get there, because we cannot be doing the same mistakes over and over again. We've seen the duplication community by community. So know that that's what's different this time. I know we've tried different routes. What's different this time, you guys? Well, there's more eyes on it. More senior leadership is looking at the tracker.
And speaking of that, we get down to do what I do best every day, and people talking about the grand opening process being so arduous, having a lot of problems. That's why I call this my magnum opus of my first year as a GSM. I created this massive, ridiculous document that I consistently go in there and add to. I think we're up to about 140 activities now. Basically, the neat thing about this grand opening process is I actually did a kind of an audit the other day, and people are starting to do it, mainly because of the reason she just said. Kirk Van Hefty now has access to it, the VP level leadership has access to it, and they're starting to ask their teams, why isn't this stuff starting? So it's not just the tracker itself, it's the visibility.